let's welcome the first team for our first match, a team that has been dominating Heroes of the Storm, KSV. Let's welcome KSV! And here comes their opponent, Ballistics. Let's give it up to Ballistics! Ballistic is our defending champion. Let's see if they can make history in this round of World Championship. 作为同样来自韩国的两支战队，他们拥有着称霸世界各大赛事的顶尖水平，并将为我们带来一场世纪对决。2017黄金世俱杯风暴英雄项目胜者组总决赛马上开始，让我们一起期待。Good luck, everyone. Let's have a best game.
English GCWC streaming live from the Water Cube in Beijing. We had a pretty intense series a little bit earlier. Well, maybe not that intense between Dignitas and Fnatic, but Dignitas was able to take a 3-0 victory. But now we're looking at the winner bracket final between Ballistics and KSV Black.
It's really exciting, the fact that we're going to have Korea versus Korea here into the winner's bracket. Because they are in the winner's bracket, obviously whoever loses here will end up going against Team Dignitas. But there's a lot to say about this series in particular, just because of the momentum that it feels like Ballistics has been able to gain over the group stage.
Exactly. Ever since they figured out that they need to have SC on one of their damage dealers, they looked absolutely fantastic. They played after the decision also, of course, against KSV Black already once in the group stage, and it was a tie. Now, heading into the tournament, everybody agreed KSV Black, the team to win the tournament. Right now, we're not so sure anymore.
It seems like, at least from the commentators, you know, talking about it behind, we have gained a lot of faith in Ballistics here. They started out with the SC not on damage that we talked about so much throughout the group stage, and then quickly they were able to clean that up. But it feels like it's gone past that now. After we watched them into the knockout stage, when they were able to flaunt the Zeratul from SC and more the flexing onto less meta, at least at that point in time, heroes, it suddenly makes it feel like the draft diversity that they have available might be enough to overcome the dominant KSV Black.
Yeah, the aggression alone that they are currently showcasing is something that most teams have huge problems dealing with. And it showed itself as well when you look at their draft potential now, because after the patch, after we headed into the live patch, they have been drafting solo support every single time. Whereas KSV Black, for example, has been heavily reliant on that double support that we are used from the older meta. So now the big question, of course, is how is that going to measure up against each other when they face now?
And another thing that comes to my mind when it comes to the questions of like, well, when it comes to this meta, what is going to be the priority for the teams is that Tyrael. It showed up very early within both of these teams as we opened into the knockout stage. It seemed to kind of disappear as the lower bracket went through, but I expect it to come back to life in this series. And I feel like for anybody, because of that draft diversity, if anyone gains an upper hand, it's got to be the members of Ballistics because of Jungha. SE with the diversity, but then Jungha on his Tyrael.
And talking about Tyrael, when we look at Ballistics in the games they played, out of the last 9 games, they picked Tyrael 6 times. And the 3 times where they didn't play Tyrael, it was picked up by the opponent's team before they could take the hero. So they are looking at Tyrael in every single one of their games right now. So I absolutely agree. A lot of Tyrael, that's what we can expect from the series. I would argue that Zeratul is also going to make a comeback again.
Yeah.
Especially since Ballistics love to play that double frontline right now with a Zeratul in the mix. And it comes back to the question, do you play double support or solo support? Right now, Ballistics seem to have figured out for themselves that with a solo support setup, they are really good looking at additional damage dealers, and oftentimes that position is filled by Zeratul.
And, you know, I feel like that Zeratul, with the interaction over the Tyrael and the spiking into that argument, it gets even more kind of muddled when we look at what we can expect out of KSV, because double support Zeratul compositions are not necessarily, you know, meta, no matter what version of it you look at. So do you drop that and are willing to pick up the Zeratul for yourself? Is it a major problem? I mean, we may see both teams maybe gloss over it, but generally speaking, right now, I feel like Ballistics has displayed so much in draft that they have a, I don't want to say an upper hand, but it looks a lot more even of a series that, again, we would have originally expected.
Yeah. Then again, when we're looking at the series that Ballistics played against Dignitas, there were also a couple of problems that they definitely had to face. Hooligan with a few questionable decisions that we could argue nearly cost them the match there, but that's something where I personally want to see if they improve on that. Overall, their drafting has improved, their aggression is something that is very fun to watch, but they still have a few individual mistakes every now and then that cost them a fight and could potentially cost them a match here, whereas KSV Black looks more dominant. And then again, Tist on the side of KSV Black currently still feels sick apparently, so has been sick for a few days. It's getting better, as he told me earlier, but he's still feeling a little bit under the weather. If that has an impact on his performance, that's something that only the games will tell, but it's still something to consider here.
And also, one thing that I'm looking at with these teams is the fact that I feels like, because we were talking about the dominance that KSV Black has, and that's using the history of, well, they only dropped 1 game at BlizzCon, they were looking pretty good for a majority of this time, but it feels like they've kind of been unchallenged outside of debatably the group stage when we got to see them in a best of 2 where it was the draw. It's only 2 games, so we don't get to conclude that much out of it, and then as the knockout stage went in, KSV Black looked equally as dominant opening up. So I feel like this is the first moment that it's going to be a really heavy tell on how successful is KSV Black post BlizzCon, especially onto this patch, whereas normally, again, we kind of have that blind faith as their roster is just outstanding.
Yeah, so the bottom line for me personally is that even though we still, most of us still agree that KSV Black is the favorite heading into this, there's very few of us that currently put it past Ballistics to actually take maps and even the entire match, because they are getting stronger and stronger. And I would argue that even if KSV walks away with the victory here, if it comes to a rematch between the two in the grand final, Ballistics' chances would only grow, because so far, over the course of the tournament, they've improved from every single step. So let's see what they can do here today. On screen now, of course, KSV Black, and that is just an all-star lineup that we have here. Rich, on the other hand, when they were playing against each other in the group stage, it was really interesting to see his Illidan against Jongha in particular, who was on the Haka. That was probably one of the best performances on the Haka that I have seen in a long, long time.
What really stood out with the Jongha, or excuse me, with the Dahaka into that interaction with Illidan for you?
First of all, that he hit every single isolation. He had solo kills on the top lane. That was already fantastic. And in every single team fight, once that Rich was forced into the Metamorphosis, immediately afterwards the isolation was there. And if isolation was actually on cooldown, he simply hit the drag immediately. Illidan, it felt like at every single step, was immediately counteracted. Jongha was there and completely butted him. Like that duel between the two of them was single-handedly won by Jongha, and it was inspiring.
Hey, Jongha is, you know, so good that he apparently, you know, the normal logic of against the Illidan, you want to point and click CC. Not with him. You know, he can still hit the skill shots over Rich dancing around, even on one of his best heroes like the Illidan. One thing that I want to talk about, though, with these teams and the matchup that's going to kind of unfold was some of the map priorities between the teams. They have very little overlap when looking at what they've displayed at this tournament. And in their bans in the last time that they played against one another, Ballistics was comfortable even removing the Sky Temple versus a team like KSV. And I've found that very interesting that they were willing to do that into the series.
Yeah, especially considering how much they prioritize Sky Temple in the group stage in particular.
Yeah. And also the same decision-making coming out from Ballistics removed Inferno. Sorry, I had that backwards. And then we saw KSV banning out the other. And both were targeting their only non-overlapping high-priority map. First map pick, though, by Ballistics is going to be on Battlefield of Eternity, which is interesting. Even though we saw this map played against Team Dignitas, it was not picked by Ballistics when they ended up playing against them. And we had heavy concerns on whether or not a European team would be comfortable selecting that against a Korean team. And normally KSV is the team dominating there. So this is already, I think, a really bold move from Ballistics.
And Ballistics is already going for the straight-up team fight here on the first map, so they can definitely gain some momentum here. They, by the way, banned out Tomb of the Spider Queen, and we had a Dragonshire banned out by KSV Black. And we've been talking about it, and KSV has, of course, also done their homework. The first move, right out of the gate, Tyrael is banned.
Okay!
I love it.
Yeah, I think it might be... Okay, so with this in mind, it comes out very fast, it comes out very bold here, but I want to know, as the series moves forward, is this not just necessarily a power play, or is it needed? Because of, again, the interactions and the diversity of the draft that Ballistics has been able to display. So far, no other team at this tournament has shown that they are comfortable moving into some of those compositions, and a lot of it is going to hinge around that hero right there. So... right now, you know, it seems very logical, again, based off the drafts that we have, but I can't help but immediately ask, is this actually more of a crutch than it is a power play?
Well, at this point, I would really say, for the first map, I think it's absolutely awesome.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Later on, you might have to make adjustments, but right now, coming out and saying, hey, we looked at your drafts as well, we know how much of an impact you have with the hero, and you have been prioritizing Tyrael in every single game, so let's see what happens if you don't have access to it.
Genji picked up for KSV. KSV's been one of the most comfortable teams moving into the doubles reset composition, typically post-secondary ban phase, move into that Ana that they are really very, very dominant with. And on Battlefield of Eternity, that style of play can be picked up, and it's not going to remove any Li Ming there for Ballistics as they go with a pretty high Murden for Hooligan and that Lucio.
Muradin is definitely one of Hooligan's favorites, and it was interesting to see that he went straight into Haymaker the time they played against against Dignitas here. Haymaker has become more of an accepted heroic on level 10 for Muradin, especially when you go up against the Malthael, but also against Arthurs it can be quite strong. You can use it as a defensive measure, where you just kick a hero out of the fight once he starts to pop his ult, or you can use it aggressively. But of course it takes a lot of the survivability of Muradin away, and that is something that Hooligan experienced against Dignitas, as Dignitas was able to punish that several times. Lucio, on the other hand, still one of the best supports, if not the best support right now in the current patch. The Haka and Li Ming take, and then that comes back to what you already talked about. KSV, they love double reset comms. Genji and Li Ming are super high priority for them, especially when we're looking at Battlefield of Eternity.
And for KSV, their draft right now, with the first 3 picks that they have last time they played on Battlefield of Eternity against Ballistics, they did end up getting the win, and it was exactly a Genji, Dahaka, Li Ming as the 1-2-3. Now, you know, the Tyrael ban has been more responsive to what we've seen as of late, and the Vala is not what they ended up removing, but it's a bit of a different comp on the side of Ballistics, so I can't help but immediately, again, still trying to look at what is KSV going to be continuing to drafting down these kind of rigid patterns I feel like we've seen from them in the past, or will Ballistics be the team, it feels like the first team to just go, this isn't going to work anymore?
Yeah. Now the thing is that when KSV drafted the last time against Ballistics on this map, they also picked up Muradin for themselves. That of course is not an option anymore since Ballistics has claimed the hero, but the thought process behind it is simply, you want a hero that can somehow lock a target down so that especially Li Ming, but then also afterwards Genji can capitalize on the stun and get the kill in. So far they still need one, and also Ballistics here for the first time in the new patch is picking double support. They have Lucio, they pick up Tassadar, and they have them now both to support Greymane, with leaving the last pick open where they can still flex.
For KSV here, last time we saw them pick it, they went with that Rhaegar and the Murden, but as you said, Ballistics with the high rotation for the Murden. That's not going to be the case. I don't think we're going to see ourselves the Rhaegar either, just sadly because for anybody who doesn't remember that we are playing on a different patch than the group stage, he is a very different beast.
Yeah, and I would say before we see Rhaegar, we're probably going to see Uther here for the Divine Shield together with Genji. That would be a good option for them. We have a couple of options with Karazim being around, but I did not expect Johanna.
Yeah, without having a Vala to back that up and get some kind of follow-up. I mean, Li Ming is decent in the sense that if you hit a huge condemn, you likely can hit more than one target with a max ranged ore, but definitely not standing out strong enough for me to be like, you know, I adore the pick, or I absolutely wanted to see that from them, and I'm still struggling to see a major counter argument other than maybe fear of that kind of isolation with the playmaker we had seen. It's going to be interesting. I've never seen that kind of move here from KSV.
Yeah, I'm a bit curious about this too, because one of the main arguments for Johanna is, of course, her wave clear, and you won't get too much of that on Battlefield of Eternity. She has still a couple of really great arguments with the blind itself against Greymane, and you already talked a bit about Muradin potentially going Haymaker, so the Iron Skin can really help out there. But it's interesting to see that as the main tank for them.
I feel like this has to be with the thought process that they feel like the Karazim, Li Ming, and Genji is a strong enough 3-man that if Dahaka's side-soaking into one lane, as long as JoJo can go down, get some clear on her own onto one of those side lanes, it's going to make it to where they have double wave clear advantage over the members of Ballistics onto those side lanes, because Tassadar has got to match onto one. If Johanna can do that on her own, it's going to add up to a little bit of experience over time, and eventually that can become a level lead. And I do feel like it was a bit predicting to move into the Tracer when you see the Tassadar on this map. It's going to be okay, but again, not a standout pick other than the wave clear here that I can really see for that Johanna on the side of KSV Black.
Tracer as that last pick is also, I mean, this is again a hero with a high skill cap, and it's going to be a little bit rough to play into the comp that KSV has. On first glance, you would immediately say, well, there's not a lot of hard lockdowns, so Tracer is going to be fine here. But then you have Karazim against her, who's pretty good because you can just chase her down and deliver a huge amount of damage. And you can, of course, also blind with Johanna. You have Blessed Shield that you can use in that situation as well. You have a couple of really good tools with Genji also attempting to hunt her down for a like if she escapes with just a few hit points and get a quick swift strike in. So it's an interesting setup that we have for the two teams here. I feel like on the side of Ballistics, Tracer, of course, has to play out of her mind in this case, but I want to see how much of an impact Johanna can really have, since this is really a hero that doesn't scream KSV Black to me.
No, it doesn't. It really... it's not that it's a hero that they haven't been comfortable picking, but in this type of composition on this type of map, it does feel a bit out of place and uncharacteristic for them. But I do feel like it does provide a pretty big advantage onto that wave clear, and so I'm hoping we see KSV focus onto that. And just really, if they can stall out, because they have so much pressure with that 4-man, that even though the Task Tracer is going to be, you know, kind of trotting around, making sure they get the harassment out, be annoying into the middle section, if Dahaka's doing his best towards top, and then we see that slight clear into a different lane, I do feel like if you can stall out these early Immortals, the first and second one, for a long period of time, the team who will have the experience advantage outside of a Colossal misplay is in fact going to be KSV.
Yeah, it's going to be I mean, it's a nice start for the series in general. Let's see who takes the momentum here. I feel it interesting that we have now the double support once again on the side of Ballistics. They still have a very aggressive composition, though, regardless. First of all, you have the Tracer and Greymane set up. You have with Hooligan at the front line, now Muradin also as the only frontliner. Does that immediately trigger for you that we are going to see Avatar over Haymaker?
I feel like I still honestly struggle sometimes to perfectly identify when Ballistics in particular, a Hooligan, when he wants to go with one over the other. I feel like it definitely, with having a double support, you have far more free reign to get away with that than rather than moving into the Avatar. But I also don't see a major argument where, like, if I'm against a double reset composition, my biggest thing that I want to make sure happens is I remove one of the resets. And it's just whether or not you can get that much value out of your low HP that you're not going to have without the Avatar, and that crowd control over the, again, just increasing your HP and saying, this is never going to happen. We're not giving over the resets here to KSV.
At this one, the only hero where you could really argue that Haymaker would have an impact in is if Rich starts flanking with the Haka and you try to get him out of the fight so that it has no isolation happening. But overall, Tassadar is going to try and focus his shields mainly on Tracer and, of course, Zhonghao and Greymane if he has to. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of time to try and keep Hooligan alive. I personally would prefer Avatar here, I have to say. Just make sure that you don't get any kills. And on the other side, I think if they play their cards right, they can really try and make sure that KSV doesn't get those kills that they need to build up the momentum with a double reset composition so that they can snowball this. But of course, the wave clear aspect, that's something that KSV can play or turn a little bit more towards the macro game and see if they can take it from there.
It's so interesting to, look at macro play on a map like Battlefield of Eternity because it absolutely does not dominate the map, but it can, in certain situations, really be a breaking point for a team if it doesn't have enough to be able to deal with it. I can't help but refer to some of the games we saw yesterday between Dignitas on Dragonshire versus, I believe it was CE off the top of my head. I'm struggling to remember. Yep. And in that case, when you saw them go, well, if we play the map slightly different, we can abuse that wave clear avenue. Granted, Dragonshire is a far more forgiving and accenting around wave clear play style, but it still can show on legitimately every single map because conveniently for Heroes of the Storm fans, there are minions on every single map.
So at this point, Ballistics with a 5-man commitment at the top. We had Genji in the middle waiting to see where Ballistics would show. And down to the bot lane, we have now Li Ming and Johanna starting to take the wave down. So a bit of an attempt by Ballistics early on to get a slight advantage, take a few hit points off the towers. KSV with a good reaction to it, making sure that they have a very quick rotation towards the top. For that sole reason, we saw Genji in the middle of the map so that Ballistics could not completely take down the tower.
Very much feels like, at least before the first Immortal phase, that this is going to be on the members of Ballistics to kind of be effective with responding the double reset and the threat that those two can provide onto the side lanes, and flanking around mixed with that safety that the Johanna pick has towards this bottom lane is going to be difficult for Ballistics to make those plays. And now KSV, they get the punishment and immediately get themselves first blood.
Very nice setup here by Li Ming, a great move, and then of course Genji is going in to deliver the kill. And that's exactly one of the big problems. If the damage is delivered towards Tracer, she is going to try and get away, but then you have always Genji and Karazim to hunt her down and deliver the final blow. So exceptionally well played here by KSV. Li Ming is going to be a crucial factor in this series. If she can deliver the early damage, then there are enough heroes who can follow up and make sure that the target dies.
And after we saw the load-in there with that beautiful AR before the series started, I had immediate concern when I looked at a little bit of some of the heroes that some of the members of Ballistics are playing. The fact that we do see SC moving towards the Tassadar, though it isn't a traditional support, when we did see those kind of uncharacteristic performance levels from them, it felt like when he was on a lesser impact hero. And then Jungha now with a more safety, warrior or side laner like we generally see from him. And so I just want to know, is this going to be kind of returning to some of those fears we maybe had here for Ballistics? It's only one kill now, but it could become more. I
definitely understand what you mean, because I talked to them after they made the change, and the response that I got was immediately, yeah, it feels much better, we are much stronger right now. So that they are willing to go back to that is really, really weird to me. Now they have, of course, there's quite a bit of impact that you can have with good Tassadar plays, but it's just nowhere near the damage output and aggression that you can deliver when you are on one of those carries. If you are on a Vala, for example, which he played several times, or on Greymane. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes on this map. And no matter the result, for me, it's going to be interesting to see if they stick to it throughout the rest of the series.
Yeah, and that's not taking anything away from like SDE, for instance, or Jungha being on those side lane or on the Greymane. It's very much just the characteristics of the play that we saw from them in the group stage very early on. Lasted only for 4 series, but it comes back to life a little bit here. Immortal Race is very consistently won there, or conveniently won by KSV. Not surprising, they have a Karazim and Li Ming, some of the best damage that you can have there. And after winning the halftime a little bit faster to do those kills, they're going to go ahead and get the first Immortal.
Yeah, just felt in general also with the roles that they're using currently on Ballistic side that it's way more down their comfort zone when they can play with a single support, so that they have Jungha then on the second melee. We're going to find out how much this is going to impact their playstyle throughout the series here. For now, as you said, KSV has taken the first Immortal and is able to push through the top. They're using the Haka at the bot lane to get the side soak, and they're actually establishing a nice lead experience already for themselves here. With Reset getting a little bit aggressive, and of course we're still seeing the poke from Li Ming. Sake trying to just get someone low enough so that Karazim and Genji can capitalize on it.
And seeing this rotation from SC, first of all, Reset did put it in a bit of kind of a awkward situation by meeting him at that front wall onto the well, but then he made the transition to be the solo laner to match into Rich, and I want to bring that back towards the why did the Johanna pick that we were kind of asking, and now seeing how this laning situation's unfolding for Ballistics, it's only standing out more and more as the thought process behind it. There's no one who can match well into Dahaka other than Tassadar. Tassadar needs Tracer with him to be, justified in the pick and the situation that we see onto the draft. That was why those two are committed. Johanna wins the side lane, Dahaka is going to be fine, and everybody who wants to match into those 1v1s in the side lanes will struggle into both of those picks. It's going to be really interesting if we see a single fort end up dropping, which I feel like is going to be very much in KSV's favor first. How does Ballistics respond? Because right now the macro pressure is light and it's problematic, but soon it will be, a problem that can't be ignored.
Oh, already, on the other hand, Rich in a bit of trouble here, but he gets the drag, and that could be the kill against Zhongha, and it is. Greymane down, Rich dodging the Tracer ult, and KSV is just dominating this. Here comes again the chase, and they get Tracer as well. Perfect play on the side of Reset with Genji, just diving in really deep to make sure that Tracer has to use her E. And in that second, she's immediately surrounded by 5 members and gets taken down. This
has got to be very concerning for anybody who's a Ballistics fan, just based on the fact that this is, again, that side lane, and as the map moves on, the global pressure in favor of KSV, double side lane advantage over to them, and that they're winning this heavily within those kills over the Immortal, a full level at this point in time. This map is really being prepped very heavily for KSV to take the game number 1. If that is going to turn around, I feel like it has to be pre-10 for Ballistics, so hopefully they can, find a way to use that Task Tracer, bring a skirmish here over this next Immortal race, Kaldor.
Yeah, they're also just losing the race flat out here. The halftime show has already been reached, and KSV has won that quite handily, and is going to try and, of course, continue that trend now. Here comes again Genji at the bot lane, trying to soak a little bit to get them a bit closer to 10. Dehaka on his way up to the top. Both of the teams have taken their Shaman camp, so currently they're just trying to take those out. Yoja even helping Rich out, going straight for the Shaman. They can go into a defensive position around their own Immortal. And Ballistics is trying to capitalize on it. They're going for Tist on Johanna, but so far there's absolutely no problem for him. We have Sake and Kyoja joining in, and now it's a 5 versus 4 as Tassadar is still towards the right side, rotating down to take down the Shamans.
And that's what I feel like we can consistently expect to see. KSV is going to have SC just as that janitor on the side lanes trying to deal with this pressure that Rich is going to add up to, and that's what I was trying to highlight with when these forts start removing, that's going to buy more and more time for KSV to pull ahead. It's really up to Ballistics here to try and bring the fight. They're doing so for a moment. Tis going to go ahead and hit Kadem. He is split, dropping the Iron Skin.
Yeah, Reset in the back is putting the pressure onto SDE with Tracer once more. Shields are there. Genji with the deflect. Moves out, but we have now a free shot for Ballistics going straight for that Immortal. KSV is trying to reset, goes down to the fountain and taps quickly, but that's a lot of free damage that Ballistics could now put onto the objective.
As long as KSV can stall this out for an entire level, though, it's very easy for them to make sure that they get this. They're just going to go ahead and just zone off. A big amount of damage there with that Swift Strike, hitting 3 members for Reset. Has to dash away, use his Reflect. Now Ballistics, though, they've got to bring the fight. They're going to go in onto Dahaka. He gets a great burrow, dodging the stun, but the pulse bomb immediately there afterwards, not enough to get the kill. Zhongha dashes out, but Sake tries to get the chase down. The Tassadar shield is there. Hooligan Dwarf tosses away. Zhongha goes back in to fight back, but he just immediately gets killed.
And Li Ming dominant saves her for now. That was exceptionally well done here on the side of KSV, but a really clutch call there. Ballistics loses a second one as SC goes down on Tassadar, and that was a fantastic defense at first, especially that Stormbolt saving them and the shield clutch coming in on Greymane. If they kill Li Ming in that situation, and it was exceptionally close.
Yes.
That fight could turn, but with Li Ming getting the kill first, Dominance giving her hit points back, and at that moment it's just a snowball. KSV walks now away with more than a level lead and another Immortal in their hands.
And this is now, it's just devastating with the heroic choices. I feel like this is inevitably going to be a keep. Rich has not committed himself down to the bottom lane, though. Might look for a flank. Reset, though, is not going to waste any time as he just uses the Dragon Blade to zone out all of Ballistics on that defense. And Ballistics understands that it's dire, that they cannot defend this bottom effectively, so they're trying to use the Greymane up on top there with whoever he's got partnered with him. I believe that's going to be the Lucio. And they're just going to try and get that siege out as best they can. It's all about waiting for 10 because at this point, They're just sitting ducks until that happens.
Yeah, they can just try and use Tassada to at least clear out the waves as best as possible, but SDE alone can't do anything down here and is constantly attacked by Reset on Genji as well. They need the 10, they're trying to get it. They're also chasing the Haka, but they can't waste too much time here. Lucy was moving in a little bit and trying to zone Rich out, but in the meantime, Greymane is just taking down minion after minion. They finally have 10, but their keep is already low and it is gone.
Dragon Blade is not going to be available for a long while, so if Ballistics can force this fight, it would be very advantageous. Sake is taking a lot of damage. Pulse Bomb goes. Palm is there, and he gets the Calamity immediately in. You can see the trust there after that Palm hits, but it also costs him his life. Magi is going to use the boop to seal the deal, and SDE and friends eat a Blessed Shield. I think Tiss is going to be just fine, but at least Ballistics finds another kill.
Yeah, and that was actually a 5 versus 3 at the, or 4 versus 3 at the start of the fight. Then the Haka moves in as well, and we have the rotation coming in from top. That was a great kill for Ballistics, and now they're trying to use that to their advantage. With a bit of momentum, Liming isn't there, so a lot of the poke from a distance is not available to KSV, and immediately Ballistics commits to the wall. They know they can't be punished by the setup that KSV is running here. That gives them at least a bit of experience. They're still a level behind though, and now we have a 5 versus 5 situation in a few seconds since Liming is already back on her way, but Hooligan is already low even before that happens.
Reset's looking to go in there, but he's not going to go ahead and pull the trigger yet. Getting value out of Hooligan. He's going to get that passive. Sound Barrier hits 4 members. Dragon Blade is used, hacking and slashing in. Greymane's first to drop, but he's not going to be the last. Magi, SC, who else left? Because Reset is just decking it here. What is happening? He just opens it up. Are they going to end game? No, they're going to wait here. That timer's still a bit too short.
Yeah, but that was definitely tempting. If you're 2 levels ahead and you just killed 4 and you're already on the keep more or less, and you're like, well, maybe we can end this, but they're playing it safe. They know that a few of their heroes, especially Reset here, are incredibly low. They are low on mana on a few others, so they simply steal the Shaman camp away. They can still get their own, have a perfect position for the next Immortal. Why risk it?
And some of those things that we were talking about with the laning situation over these Immortals, it is getting more and more grim, because now that that keep is taken on bottom, I was originally concerned when a fort drops. So what does this map look like over the Immortals, and how far ahead does KSV pull? Now that a keep is down, it is going to be a lose-lose scenario over and over again for Ballistics. They have to, I mean, it really comes down to just, I feel like, a huge outplay if they're going to recover.
I mean, it's also just an execution question. When we saw that fight happen at the bot lane, it was a 5 versus 4 in Ballistics' favor. Liming at the beginning of the fight wasn't even there, but the damage output onto Hooligan eventually forced Lucio to drop his ult,
drag.
and then we saw the ult on Genji, and that committed everything.
Rich going in with a perfect brush stock into an immediate use of the isolation drag. They're going to go ahead and get Hooligan. He dwarf tosses away, hits the Stormbolt, but Reset is not going to find a Reset. Pulling away, getting this damage out, and 10-second advantage. This is going to be halftime for KSV, and 0 damage done to that Immortal. And now with this time bot, because of the pressure down below, it's very likely that this is going to be 70-80% shielding.
Yeah, 12 minutes in, 10 kills against 1. Dire situation for Ballistics. They're trying to make a play now with 5-man on the map once again. But right now we have Liming just moving back, getting mana and hit points back so they can set up for that 5 versus 5. Bot lane is continuously pushing towards the core already. And Ballistics can't even race. They can't lose it. So once again, we're seeing them moving in. KSV immediately wants to see if they can get a kill into the backline here. Hooligan has already taken quite some damage and eats another combo from Saka.
The biggest thing is if they can get this stall out long enough for the 13, but I feel like that is so unreasonable. Jongha backs out. The damage indicator there is going to let KSV know that this is an advantageous fight beyond just the talent here. A man advantage. He pulls back, trying to get the peel, throws out the flash. We see the drag onto Hooligan, and he just gets deleted. One shot. Dragon Blade used. The isolation lands. Second reset here for the double reset composition. And I mean, how do you stop KSV when they're playing like this?
Yeah, at this point, there's just no way. They get a counter kill against Genji, but that's not going to be enough. SC is already in trouble, and he is down. Tassada eliminated. More resets for Liming, and they can simply head towards the Immortal and yeah, clean the game out. Up at the top, we still have a fort, so they need to go through the fort and the keep if they want to clear the top lane, but they still have that 3-level lead right now. They have the talent advantage, and Ballistics is just trying to stop the bleeding somehow, but they are so far behind. 13 kills against 2.
And it's going to be that 16. And at that point, I mean, this very much, to me, it looks like it's going to be game. Ballistics, I feel like, might not be able to defend this with the 16 talent tier 3-level lead, which gives the statistical advantage on top of that. I wish I could think of a way to be able to deal with it, but they don't even have that good siege against it. We see the drag onto SC. He dimensional shifts out. Big blind from Tis, but nothing to be gained.
Yeah, Blessed Hammer on the side of Johanna on 13, also starting to do a little bit of work. And we have, once again, a 3-level lead, the talent advantage, and they go easily through the top lane. Ballistic somehow has to be able to jump past the Immortal and try to get the damage in, but KSV has great position once again in the ridge with an attempt to get the tongue in. Doesn't hit the drag. Reset in a bit of trouble, needs to be careful here. But Ballistics just can't get the kill.
That has been, you know, an uncharacteristic amount of times that Reset has gone in and just been a little bit overextending and missing a switch strike. They have been unable to punish it yet into this game, but maybe that's how Ballistics can come back from this, as the Immortal now takes the keep. The shielding's gone. They're going to move past. SDE eats a lot of damage there from Reset, tracking him down. He gets the shield, but Rich is the focus, and they end up getting the kill. Sound barrier used, and now they're in pursuit.
That could be it. They're starting to go in, and they need to get a little bit more than that, don't they? But the Immortal is, of course, already on the core. They're trying to go for Reset. Dragonblight is once again out. Here comes the palm. They're waiting it out. And they proc it just before it ends. They could still get the kill against Tisto, and he falls. Johanna is down. So is Limming. It's a triple kill. They can still go for Genji, and they do. 4 kills. The core has lost its shield, has taken damage, but they can defend the core. The problem is they have no keep left, and they haven't even taken a fort yet.
And this is where we need to see Ballistics just constantly keep pressure into an individual lane and demand the respect and response out of KSV if they're going to make that comeback. We talked about the pressure against them when it comes to this minion situation, and it is not into their favor. So how do you stop that? Just make sure that KSV's looking at you at all points in time. Top seems like that's the focus for now, as it is the weakest structure available. I'd like to see them even back out, double stack camps like the Shaman and camp above them, and then just go, hey, KSV, would you like to take this fight here? Because otherwise, a double catapult lanes pushing into your base while that Immortal goes through just seems like a very risky option for Ballistics.
They have to continue the aggression. They need to be the ones that currently initiate every single fight and always force KSV to react. And that hasn't really been their strong suit throughout the game. So they really need to be all out there, need to make sure that they clear the lanes, but more so they need to make sure that KSV can not take the initiative on the map again. Because once that happens, KSV has too many options. They can try and go for a backdoor at some point if they play enough with vision, if they push out the lanes, and just 1 or 2 kills is all that KSV needs at this point to win the game.
It's an interesting choice for Ballistics. They did end up committing to that top camp, as it will buy a little bit of time. But their Shaman, they fully intend to be captured, perfectly timed with the Immortal, as KSV captures those just a fraction of a second earlier. But Ballistics didn't maintain that pressure I was hoping for. What I was trying to say is that they didn't even make the transition down towards like bottom fort, and I felt like that has to be it here. Otherwise, the argument is going to come down to the Immortal. And that's just, again, very, very scary decision-making.
They seem to be confident that they can win the team fight.
Yeah.
They need to force it. KSV is not playing with time. They can simply stall it out. The longer they stall this fight out, the better it is for KSV Black. It's all they need, because both lanes are pushing against the core of Ballistics. Right now, we're going to see the race until the halftime show. It's just so that the Immortals end up in their final position, that you can win them outright, and then Ballistics will have to force a fight. And they need to win it decisively. If they do that, they can build up the momentum. But if KSV is able to just delay this, then Ballistics is going to end up in an unwinnable situation where they have to respond to the catapults pressuring their core, and that would give KSV the time to get another Immortal that would surely end the game.
Those catapults on top are scary, scary as they're going to march on. That's 69 permanent damage to that core. They move up, a little bit of damage, force the Avatar. Sound barrier here from Ballistics. They need to try and get that. Stormbolt lands on the reset. Do they get the palm? The reflect, the palm, and it's procced.
The palm is procced, and they're trying to still get them. Jumping in, Hooligan is extremely aggressive here. 600 hit points missing, and then KSV would get another Immortal. Any kind of core would be enough, but the core is already losing even more points as the shields are gone. 2 catapults are homing in. Someone is going to head back, and that will proc an immediate response out of KSV. They're going for it. They have the Immortal, and this should be lights out. And it actually really surprises me, because what we saw was Ballistics splitting 2-3 heroes to damage the Immortal of KSV Black. And the second that KSV wins the Immortal, you know that your chance of winning the game are pretty much dropping down to 0. So it's really surprising to me that Ballistics did not, from the get-go, after the halftime show, say, we need to force a fight. It might not be the best fight that we get. Maybe we have a bad spot, but if we don't do it, we're going to lose.
And they're trying to get this fight off the core as best as they can. Jungha takes a lot of damage. That's going to be reset number 1. Dominant Prox is there. Kyocha's under a lot of pressure. He uses Palm on himself. He will keep himself alive. And now with that 1 member down, 2 members down, a third immediately after the Immortal sieging up onto the core. This is GG. Dominant fashion for KSV. Far more so than I expected.
Hooligan jumped out and Li Ming hits a final combo his way and actually connects and takes him on. And this is game number 1. KSV Black takes the first game in the series in convincing fashion with 18 kills against 7. And I'm pretty sure this is the last time in the series that we are seeing SC on a hero like Tassadar.
I'm going to say I don't know if it's the last time, but I hope that is the last time.
Okay, well,
just because that did feel a little bit, again, closer to not only just in terms of the roles and the positioning of SC, but more so the play style of the entire team. It seems so overly responsive rather than trying to be that team proactive and trying to demand responses from KSV. And even when they found themselves situationally into the game where debatably the only way to win is demand respect from your opponent, we still saw them do the exact opposite, right? Get that retreat and bait onto that team fight that was just, again, I felt like it was such a, you know, almost unwinnable situation. It's outside of a major misplay from KSV.
The execution was also not strong at all. At the bot lane, we had a fight. We came back to that a bit earlier. I tried to talk about it when the fight again started up. Li Ming was still missing, came back from the core. It was a 5 versus 4 situation, and Hooligan ate so much damage that Lucio was actually forced to pop his sound barrier before the Dragon Blade. And all that Reset did was just simply say, what, you just use your ult? Alright, I'm gonna wait for a couple of seconds, and then I'm gonna kill all of you.
Dude.
And that's exactly what happened there. So that can't happen. Hooligan can't be as far out and take this much damage that it forces his support player to drop his ult in that situation. Reset is gonna punish you for that immediately.
It was actually insane. Just not only the response and playing around the sound barrier, but for Reset, it felt like the stars aligned. Like almost max range distance of every Swift Strike. There was somebody there who's like, hey, you want a Dragon Blade to the face? Deal. Yep, there's a Reset. And then again, max range once more. And to no surprise, he is the man who will in fact be our MVP. I mean, there was about no moment when you saw him, like, where he wasn't impactful. I will still say, though, I had criticism towards this play. It was very uncharacteristic. Really 3 different times where he got a Swift Strike, but it was his ability to use his passive and jump over a wall poorly timed. Only was